So now we've finished doing, can you see? Oh, I've got some stragglers still. Finished doing our border quilting, whatever you may have done. And I was a bit naughty last time because I hadn't squared off my corner when I sewed the this last strip on. If you remember, I left that. So I'm just gonna, using a 12-inch ruler, square that now. But as we're in the stage of getting rid of everything now, I can go through all the layers. Yeah, see? So we're bringing it back. Just 1 minute. Yeah, bringing it back. To where we were. Alright, that'll do for now, because having done that corner, yeah, what I like to do, I've got enough room to put it down here, what I like to do is to pull up all the way up to the other corner, get my 12.5-inch ruler, and now it should be square, but remember how I said to you that when we quilt it will drag it in a little bit. So yeah, just trying to make it as good as I can. And then again, we're cutting everything now. Alright, so that's that corner. Let me just sever that piece. Sever that piece. And then you can use your, bring it back towards you. And now you can use your long ruler, because what you're hoping to do is to follow along, keeping it nice and straight on your edge to meet up with that cut we made up there. So I'm going to start about there. Okay. My tracker pen fell down. And then, whoops, meet up with this bit. So you see I got both ends to work with now. Making sure everything's nice and flat. And I can go along and square that piece up. Now, when we've been all the way around the quilt like this, I'm not going to do it all in front of you, but the next thing we need to do now, where we've got, this is the actual bit that we're going to bind. What we need to do here is put this under the machine and do a less than 1/4 inch, but quite an elongated, but less than 1/4 inch deep zigzag stitch all the way around to keep these edges nice and firmly together, so that when we put our binding on, we don't end up with a bit like that going like that underneath the binding. If we've zigzagged it all together, the binding will go on so much more smoothly. And that'll be the next step, cutting the binding. So I've just brought this back to show you, and I will try and zoom in it, how I have, I've done it in purple thread so you can see it, how I have just gone all the way around and zigzagged all the edges to keep them, you see, nice and firm together now. Alright, that's just makes life easier. So here's the purple that I'm going to use for my binding. It's a very nice purple cotton. I think it's Make Our. And it's folded. There's the 2 selvages, so that's the width of fabric, yeah? Yeah. So that makes it 40 inches wide. I think I only got a metre of this, so I folded it in 4, okay, to fit underneath how I do cut my strips. Now you could take, how can you do it? You could take a 2.5 inch ruler, because we want 2.5 inch strips, and do it like that. You could do a long ruler and use that and do 2.5 inch strips. I prefer to do it this way because I know that my lines are going to be perfectly straight because they're in a groove. Alright, so I'm just bringing it over and I'm going to give myself a nice line to start on my 0, 0 line and cut off anything that may be you know, not cut straight. As you can see, can you see on that it's thicker at the bottom than it is at the top? So that was from the shop, wasn't cut perfectly straight, which, you know, it's difficult when you're in the shop to cut things perfectly straight. So 2.5 inches, there's one strip. I'll just do that again. One strip, 5 inches, that's 2 strips. I got to think I'm going to need at least 4, 5, 7.5. They're 40 inches wide, and it's going to need more than that, I think. There's 10. So I'm going to start with 4. I'll just get one of them up a minute. I'll get my quilt over. Remembering that we've got to take a join. We're going to have to join these. And just see how far that will go. This should be square, so they should be the same all the way round. So if I was doing with 1, yeah, how far would I get? 1, see, it's not going to get me to the end, so I'm going to need probably 6 strips. So I'm going to cut 6 strips. I've cut 4. Where did that take me up to? 10 would, wouldn't it? 4. Maths, Jack, maths. So I want 10, I want 12.5 and 15. Right, so as easy as that, I've now cut 6, 6 2.5 inch strips. And also, if you're ever going to be wanting to do more work with jelly rolls, then this is such an easy way to cut up fabric yardage into strips for jelly roll work. Yeah, it's great. I do like that ruler. So now we literally have got to join them all together. So where's the one I opened? There's one I opened. Right. So which is the right way around? That's the top. You can tell because the indentation should go down. So that's the right way round. Now I know it's going to get a bit confusing because this is all the same colour. But then, so if you consider that, make sure I'm in shot, that's good side looking at me. Then this one, it doesn't matter, but it should be, this one should go wrong size down, yeah? Alright? And I'll just put a couple of pins in there. And I'll get my Chaco chalk and show you. So they're going to cross over at 90 degrees. I'm going to put a pin in that corner. And a pin in that corner just to hold it. Alright? And then with your ruler, we want to sew from the top to the bottom. So this is the top really. So we want to sew this diagonal where they cross there and they cross there. So I'm just going to draw that, if it'll let me, with my, oh not very good Jack, in my Chaco pencil, which is chalk. So we're going to sew across there, yeah? So then on the end of the next one, so remember this is the wrong side down now, so turn it over. So now it's the right side. Get the next one. And then this has to go wrong size down. Okay. Plop your pins in. And then we're going to sew. Let me chuck open. I hope this works this time. We're going to sew from that corner across to that corner. We're going to sew that. Yeah? So if we go back to the first one. Yeah? When you undo it, that'll be the right side up. So now coming along, that's your right side down. And that's your wrong side on top. So then we turn it over, turn it out, and we just keep going like this. Wrong side down. Wrong side down, and we're just literally going to join this into one huge long strip that is going to go all the way around our quilt, and then I'm going to show you how to finish it off in the end. So yet again, you're sewing from that corner to where they cross on that corner. Right, then we need to turn it over again and keep going. So when I've done all that, we come back, and before we cut off the excess, we will just check, and I'll show you that bit as well. Alright? Alright, so I've just sewn those lots together, and as you can see, I've sewed across my diagonal line. So when you bring it up, there we are, we've got a lovely 45-degree angle of a join. So the next thing we need to do, and you can get a ruler and do this naturally, but basically all we want now is a 1/4 inch left, and you can cut off your dog ears as well if you've got any. Yeah, and then so there's our lovely join. Now when we are going to, in a moment, fold this wrong sides together so the nice side is sticking out, and when we do that, we are first of all under the iron, we are going to press that seam open. Yeah, we're going to press that seam open before we wrong sides together. So right sides out, pretty sides out, before we fold all this length of tape in half and iron it. Alright, let me just show you. Here's the next one. So yet again, always test it first, because if it's not right, you can go back and do it. Take your 1/4 inch off, and with the next one. Okay, so, and you know, you're getting a nice straight it's a bit bigger than 1/4 inch, never mind. Cut your legs off. Yeah, so that's going to be our nice join, and we are going to fold that back. Have I got one more? No, that was the end. Right, so as I said, wrong sides together, so pretty side out. We're now going to iron those seams as we come to them, iron them flat before we fold in half, and we're going to fold all the binding in half. Pretty sides out. So now, I've been sewed all this together and ironed it in half. We want to get some marker pins now. We don't want to start right on the corner, we want to come around the corner, so I think I might end there, but I want to give myself a good 10-inch gap, so I'm putting another pin in there. Yes, that's a good gap for me to work with, and I am going to leave at least that much of a tail, and this is rough edges to rough edges, yeah. I'm going to pin that in there. now, and with a 1/4 inch seam, okay, I'm going to use a walking foot that has a 1/4 inch guide on it. I am literally going to sew 1/4 inch and sew all this to the quilt so that we're ready to turn it back. Okay, so I'm going to do that all the way round, and when I get to this pin I'm going to stop because I want this big gap and I want a tail like this as well. Hopefully I'll come back to you. Right, I just wanted to show you what I'm doing here in the corners. So we sewed along here very nicely, thank you. And then as we come along now, I'm going to sew to a 1/4 inch before the edge. Alright, so I'm just going to get back where I was and just quickly sew that bit again. Let me just get where I was. Back a bit so I can overstitch what I was doing. Right, so stitching down, and before I get to a 1/4 inch, my needle's a 1/4 inch behind, so about there, I will then lift up my foot and swing it so I'm coming 45 degrees angle, whoops, into that corner. Alright, and sew that, and off and stop. Right, then, I hope you can see what I'm doing. I will then peel this bit up, so I'm making that 45 degree angle, so I'm peeling it up so it's straight in line with the quilt, and then I hold it at the top, and I'll bring it down, fold it over itself, ready to go all the way back down the other way. And I haven't got sugar, I haven't got a pin. Oh, I've got a pin. I usually use a clip because it's easier, but I'll just pop a pin in there to hold it for me, yeah, because now obviously I'm turning the corner. If I can get everything round in one piece. Turn in the corner. Hope you can still see this. Whoops, make sure you can still see it. And under my needle, that piece is now going to come down the side. You see, so we've made this corner. And then I start a few stitches in, and then I'll go back right to the top and back again, if it'll let me. It's a bit thicker now, isn't it? Right, so then we just continue on down in the same way as we've been going all the way along, lining up the rough edges and doing our 1/4 inch seam. Quilt's getting bigger and bigger, isn't it? Right, so I'm just going to continue doing that now for a moment. I don't know whether you can hear if I'm really quiet. Can you hear the ring? It's absolutely pouring down here. Right, okay, so we've been all the way around. I showed you how to do the corner, didn't I? Which that allows us to have our when we turn it round, that will give us our mitre on the corner, okay, the way I showed you to do those corners. But now we need to seamlessly, I've sewn up to where I put my pegs in to give me enough room, because now we've got to join this to that but away from the quilt, so I just needed a bit of space to be able to do it. How I do things, and I am going to try and make this as easy for you as I can. This one from the right, we call that, let's call that the top as if we did it before. yeah, I am going to, it's still in half, I'm going to write T on that, T, the top, alright, and this one is going to be the underneath one, so we need to use it as if it was the wrong way round, yeah, so we're using the inside of it, so I am going to put, whoops, a W for wrong side. Be easy if I wasn't using fabrics that were all the same. But anyway, what we need to do, the best way I've always found to do it, is that we need this in the centre somewhere of that gap to give us enough room to work, is we need these two to have an overlap. Now, if your binding, as mine is 2.5 inches wide, we need I'm going to have to write that T a bit closer down, a minute. We need, top, right, we need a 2.5 inch overlap. So I plop that down, and I just use a peg for a moment. I just pop that down, and now I can unhitch that one, and I can say, right, I want to put that one over the top, yeah, and I'll just peg that down for a second. Now I need, looking at it, I need there to be a see, I've got one underneath and one on top. I need there to be a 2.5 inch overlap and cut them. So I'm going to get any sort of ruler really, but I'm going to, and I want to do it more or less in the middle. Yes, I want to do it about there. So the bottom one, I'll just take that off a second. Where's my middle? Yeah, it's about there. So I'm going to make a line on the bottom one, yeah, and then I'm going to make another line 2.5 inches up. Alright, then I'm going to bring the one where we started and put over the top, and I am again, because I can see them, I don't know whether you can, but I can just see the tips of what I've just done, so I can mark that and mark that. Okay, so now these strips have got 2.5 inch markings on them. And then with a nice pair of scissors, or your rotary cutter, but at this stage I found it easier to do it with your sewing scissors, I'm going to cut that outside line on the mark, and I'll take the clip out, and I am going to cut that inside line on the outside mark. Alright, so now, yeah, when I overlap, you see, I got my 2.5 inch overlap. Alright, so now I know it's going to fit perfectly. So what I need to do now, remembering this was T for top, so that's the right way round, and this was W for wrong, so this is the inside, the W's gone away, but this is wrong, yeah? See what I mean? I'm taking inside of that one, which was the wrong side, and this is why we need a bit of space, because now, in this, I'll have to pull this together, because now, in the same way as we did our binding strips together, we are going to put that one down top way, this is wrong side, over the top, the inside, the wrong side, over the top, and again I'm going to pin it like I did the others, just as if we're doing the binding strips again. Alright. Make sure I'm keeping it nice and square, because that's the whole point. Nice and squared up. Put another pin in. Alright. And then, in exactly the same way as we've always done, we are going to go, readjusting that a moment, it's not quite as square as I wanted it. So I can see my other corner, yeah, that's good, that's all good. And pin that. This is why we need to leave this big gap so we can work with it and it wouldn't, you know, not be too tight on each other. I can take that pin out as well now. So just as we did when we were making our binding, we are going to sew from that corner to that corner, a straight line across there. Then that will allow us to bring it back and it will be joined and it will fit. I'm just going to do that and I'll come straight back and show you. Alright, so I've just sewed that. Need these bits now. Jack the pens out of the way. And, woo! Sort of doing it for me. But see, that's what I just sewed across there. And test it before you cut it. But that's perfect. So now, all I need to do is to cut off my 1/4 inch, oops, seam allowance, and I will just finger press that out, yeah, and fold it in half, and it'll sit there exactly the same. I'll get rid of those taco marks. Yeah, and you will see that that is, you wouldn't know that that was any different from any of the other binding stitch joins that we've done. And all I need to go is back under the machine now and go back about 1/2 inch from where I started, sew that down and overlock about 1/2 inch of where I finished, and that will be sewn and the whole thing will have the quilt binding sewn on so far. Right, okay, so where those 2 marks were there, that's my joint. So there's the joint, yeah, but it's perfect and it lies lovely and superly flat on the quilt. So that's how I join my binding, and you would never know. I mean, there are joins as we made them before we started sewing. Oh, can't find one. There's one. See, there's a join there, but they're no different. My ending join is no different. So, you know, there's nowhere to tell you where it really stopped and started. Now, the next thing that we have to do is, you could give it a quick press out. Oh, and also I would say to you, because we went through the step of zigzagging this edge, you'll notice that there's no bit of backing that's come away or anything. It's all nice and neat and easy to get around. So now we need to start somewhere. We may as well start there. Okay, and we're going to bring it round the 1/4 inch, and I always peg a few, and then I'll use the pegs as I go round to peg some more as I go. Okay, so now we are literally pegging the or clipping the front to the back, making sure we're just covering the stitching. Okay, now as we go, we do want to make sure that that is covering that stitching behind, so that when we literally now, basically, if you're going to do it by hand, then obviously you just sew it. If you're going to do it on a machine, then we are now literally stitching the ditch, but we have to always be concerned that we are catching the back of that backing all the way around. So do it nice and slowly. Also, change your bottom bobbin to purple, because you want the purple now to be on the purple on the back, so you want it to be not seen that much. So change your bobbin to purple as well. I just wanted to show you, for a change this time, instead of using a straight stitch and, you know, with fingers crossed and everything else, I decided, as you can see in this photograph above, to do a slanty type blanket stitch, which is one of the stitches that's on my machine, and you know, you may have it on yours or just do an ordinary blanket stitch. But the whole point of doing this is, with those little upward strokes, if your material is not bang on at the back, it will still catch it, because there's nothing worse than doing a straight stitch of lining and realise that you've got quite big gaps at the back and it hasn't caught material. But with this kind of stitch, in some ways, as a friend, I sent this photograph to a friend and she said, "Have you hand stitched that?" So it's actually quite effective, isn't it? But it makes sure that the back is always getting caught, which is, you know, half the problem when we are attaching a binding. So I thought I'd just show you that for a moment, and now I'll show you the completed quilt. So here it is, all finished, all done. I wanted to take it out and take a lovely photograph out in the sunshine and show it to its best advantage. Unfortunately I can't. It's been pouring down here all day, dark clouds, you name it, it's happening. So I've just chucked it up in my sewing room and taken the photograph so you can see the dark purple binding. If you hone in on it, you can see where I've done the rope work on the border, etc, etc. I will in the next couple of days take a better picture of this, because and add it to the video, because this was kind of all I could do right now. Okay, but I hope you've enjoyed it, and you know, go back and look at other things that we do, and come and join us on Crafty So-and-So's. Just a quick glimpse. The very next thing I'm going to do is what they call an apple core quilt, and I will be doing this and showing you how to sew apple cores, curved edges together. Yeah, these are two fabrics that I'm going to use, and I'm going to do it as a table runner, and then when it's finished, what is the interesting part is how to cut binding on the bias, because this is going to have a curved waved edge all the way around. So now we need to cut on the bias for the binding, and also then moving over to my other channel, which is Lovelock Designs. On that one we're going to do some Baptist fans ruler quilting to really lift it up and give it something special. But this is just a heads up, a little preview of what I'm looking at working on next.